TYB, well, welcome to the book of Ezekiel. What an adventure you are about to begin. When I started studying Ezekiel, I was a little bit scared, I'm not going to lie. We called him the weird prophet in the TYB Bible because we're like, this is some weird stuff that you're going to hear. Beyond your imagination. God is a supernatural God, and when you read Ezekiel, I don't want you to pull away and go, that's too weird, I can't understand it. Sometimes God is going to give us visions in Ezekiel. He's going to show you things that are just going to be beyond us. Wrestle with them, engage with them. If you can watch Star Wars and the stuff that comes out today, Ezekiel is going to be pretty normal to you. So as you jump in, really have a ball in this book, because this prophet is super zealous, slightly eccentric, a little bit weird, but you're going to have a ball. You're going to love it. Okay, so what are we reading and where are we? We are in the 5 major prophets. So the prophetic section of our Bible has 5 major, 12 minor. We're in one of the major prophets. So the book is quite long. It is 48 chapters long. We've given you 2 parts for TYB just to kind of prompt you through, but sit in this text, wrestle with it, engage with the imagery. You're going to love it. So in the 5 major, we've got Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Now we know that Ezekiel and Daniel are the 2 books written in exile, which is kind of cool because these guys aren't in Jerusalem. They aren't in the holy city. They are writing these prophetic messages from exile. So just as you go through, remember where he is prophesying, because some of the times you feel like he is in Jerusalem and he has to be, but he's not. He's 700 miles away. So what are we reading? It's got apocalyptic writing in it. What does that mean? It's going to be above your brain. It's going to be above your imagination. It begins with these creatures with eyes and hands and this incredible moment of imagination where God shows him the creatures of heaven and this guy with 4 faces. And I love it because it lets my imagination run wild. And then this man comes in and gives him the message, and we go into Ezekiel's calling. The apocalyptic writing means a heavenly view of what's happening on earth. And he jumps to these places. So get ready for an adventure feeling a bit like Revelation and a bit like parts of Daniel, this apocalyptic. Now, he does poetry, he does laments, he does prose. There's all sorts of writing in here, lots of imagery, lots of stuff that you can wrestle with, TYB. So you're going to really adventure through this book. Now, this super passionate, eccentric prophet has the call of God on him in chapter 2. And I want you to just jump into Ezekiel, just the beginning, and I'll show you. From the beginning, he actually tells us at what time he's prophesying. So it says, in the 13th year, in the 4th month of the 5th day, while I was among the exiles, okay, so he's not in Jerusalem, he's in exile, by the Kibar River, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Now, what is a prophet in the Old Testament? The prophet of an Old Testament gets visions from God, gets messages from God. And you're going to hear time and time again, and you're going to highlight it because you're trashers. The word of the Lord came to me. The word of the Lord came to me. So these aren't messages that Ezekiel's making up. These are messages that God has given Ezekiel to say. And I'll tell you, his commitment to the prophetic messages is incredible. There are times where God tells him to lie on one side. There's times where God tells him to cook on human poop. It's disgusting. And thank God, God changes his mind, because I don't know whether I'd do that. I have to say, Lord, do not let me. That's going to be a no from me. But there's times where he says, go in and, do this demonstration of exile. And you know what blows my brain? He does everything, and all it just says was, I was obedient, I was obedient, I was obedient. This prophet is eccentric and amazing and zealous for God, and he's obedient to the voice of God telling him what he needs to say. The burden of Jerusalem has come on him. Now, you've got to remember, in these 48 chapters, your imagination is going to run wild. Who is Ezekiel? Now, we know the prophet Ezekiel is in exile, but we know that he is the son of Buzi, which is B-U-Z-I. Buzi, it was a priest. So Ezekiel is a priest. So he's a priest and a prophet. And you can hear this priest-like language when he's talking about the temple, and he talks about all the stuff. He's got this really solid understanding of the way of a priest and the temple understanding. So just notice that as you read it. He has actually been taken into exile when King Nebuchadnezzar, a Babylonian king, actually took over Jerusalem. So about 597 BC that happened. Ezekiel prophesies from about 640 to about 587 BC. Now, as you're reading this, guys, remember, He's prophesying in the moment. Some of the other prophets are warning of what's about to come. Some of the prophets are warning and saying, it's okay, the remnant's still there, keep going. But Ezekiel is prophesying in the moments that it is happening. So you're going to hear the heart, you're going to hear the burden. He's called the watchman in his calling, the watchman of Israel, and he has a burden for this city. And some of the things that God gets him to do are happening at the exact time that he's praying for it. It is just revolutionary to me. When you go through this, he says, in the 5th year I was in exile, so he's about 30, God starts speaking to him and he gets this call. Now, I have to say, this is the worst calling of ever. If I got this prophecy, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the worst calling ever. God says to him, they're going to be rebellious. They're not going to listen to you. They are rebellious people that are not going to listen to you, but you have to keep prophesying. I love Ezekiel's heart. He's tenacious, he's zealous, he's crazy, he's weird, but you're going to love it. So as you go through, he's clearly a man of influence because the tribes of the elders of Judah and the elders of Israel come and visit him. So he's a priest with influence, and that's about as all we know about it. The sad thing is we know that his wife dies because he says, my wife dies, and we know it's at the very time that the fall of Jerusalem happens in chapter 24. This heartbreaking moment where we get to hear the heart of the prophet and God says, look, your wife's about to die. Oh, it's really sad, but jump in. So he's calling, as I said, he gets called to a rebellious people to speak the word of the Lord. It is a crazy ride in this book, but you're going to love it. He talks about, in his calling, the holiness of God. It's accountability. He says, look, the blood's on my hand, and if I don't say this and I don't do these things, then the blood of Jerusalem is on my hands. That's a real burden of this prophet Ezekiel. Now, before we finish this snapshot, let me tell you a quick thing. It's written in chronological order, which is kind of amazing. So as you go through, I want you to highlight the dates because he actually does it in chronological order. There's a very simple structure to the book of Ezekiel, and it's this. It goes through, and it's chapter 1 to 3 is his calling and this incredible apocalyptic vision. And then it says the word of the Lord, and it goes through his prophecies. And it's his prophecies and his prophetic symbolism that he has to do. And it goes through in this this order, and you can hear in the first section it's judgment, it's repent, it's you're on your way. It's got this understanding of chronological heading towards this pinnacle moment where the fall of Jerusalem happens, and I'm going to talk about that in the next snapshot. And then what happens is we go to this beautiful end moment. Now I want you to highlight the dates as you go through, okay? As he does dates, I want you to highlight the dates as you go through, because there is this chronological order to these visions and prophecies. Jump in. This is a crazy ride. Are you ready? TYB, it's fun, it's weird, it's out there. Use your imagination above and beyond what we ask, think, or imagine God is. So jump into the first section, and I'll see you for your next snapshot video, and we'll go through the structure and we'll explain a little bit more to you.